Alrighty, so now what I want us to do is actually play around with the API because, not to anyone's surprise, really, there is an API for Chat GPT. And this is why we're seeing all these applications now come up that are being created that you can use instead of Chat GPT directly, that just create custom interfaces and also can play with the way the data is generated. But what I want you to do here is, now that you have a free account, you do have access to the API documentation. Okay. So I think I searched for just Chat GPT API. And then I think I got to here. Ultimately, where I ended up is right here in the API reference. Okay. And then I went over and started looking at, because there's a lot of different APIs that you can use, from images to audio to files. The one we're going to focus on is chat itself. Okay, so what happens here is it gives you, it's a post, right? So we should know a bit about that with our first video from Fetch API, the Fetch API. So we know we're going to have to create a header, right? Then it gives us, now if you've never seen this, this is a curl command. This is just if you were going to copy and paste it as a full command. This is not code that you would paste in the VS Code. But the good news is it actually gives you kind of some of the things you're going to need. Matter of fact, look at this, H header. And then you're going to need something for here that references the model. So your task is this, okay? Your task is to attempt to write some code, and you can use the code we used. Let me just show you, right? So you can use that standard code that we had in the Fetch API. The key I want you to attempt this time is writing the options object, okay? Now, yes, you're going to need a key, and yes, you can get one for free from here. And I made sure that by actually signing up for a different account, so I can make sure that you could actually view API keys and create the secret key. Okay, so by the way, just play with this. Don't push it to GitHub yet. Okay, and I'll show you why in a minute. But the first thing I want you to do is first attempt right, to create this file or this code. What would go in the options? I'm going to, of course, show you in a minute what those are going to be. Okay, but I want you to see if by looking at the documentation, you could come up with what you think that object would be. Now they do give you, right? They do give you examples as well, right? So you could look at the examples. Now you'd have to dig in here to figure out where they're at, and they are in there. It gives you a playground, which is also awesome as well. But pretty much what you're going to need, right? Making requests talks about, read through this. It'd be good to look at this. Okay. That's helpful, right? So I want you to see if so the assignment for this case is 2. See if you can put together the request object, okay? We'll go back here. The request object for making a call to chat, okay, to get back some content. I will tell you, it does work. It took me a minute. I do have it running. I'll show you in the next one what happens was when you run it. You actually do get some content back. Takes a minute here, right? So if you wrote that object correctly, you do get choices back. You do get, I asked the question, my question was, can you teach me, right? Can you teach me JavaScript? And this was the answer I got back. Okay, so now it doesn't have to be working at this point. right? You do want to go get that API key. I'll talk about that in a minute because that'll be the next part of the assignment. So for this part of the assignment, all I want you to do, and then I'll have a commit message here that says commit with the header object, and just see what your attempt on that was. And then in the next video, I'll actually walk you through what I figured out and then talk about something that I'm wondering how many of you have already thought about. All right, so again, that's this part. And then we'll move on to the next part.